Hello and welcome to The Creative Entrepreneur, the series that features interviews with amazing people. I know you're going to love this interview with Joan Stewart, also known as the Publicity Hound. But before we jump into that, just a quick second to remind you that if you would like to be alerted every time a new interview is posted, please get on the DIY Career Manifesto VIP mailing list. And not only will you get an email every time I post a new episode, but you'll also get a big fat sample of what I've written so far of a new book called the DIY Career Manifesto. It's the unconventional guide to turning your talents and know-how into a profitable business, and I'd like to give that to you, just my compliments. And all you have to do to get that and get on the email list is go to DIYcareermanifesto.com. Now, on to the interview. Hello, welcome to another episode of The Creative Entrepreneur. I'm really excited to have someone else that I've known for a while as a guest here. And I'm talking about Joan Stewart, who is known as the Publicity Hound. Hello, Joan. How are you?
Hi, Bob. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here.
Yes, indeed. Now we have, and I'm going to give you a little, give a little bio on you, and just ask you to fill in a little information about your background in a moment here. But I just want to clarify: you and I have been, even though we've never met face to face, this is actually the closest that we've ever come to meeting face to face.
That's right. You're about about 14 inches from my face right now.
It's a computer screen. Yes, but we've never in the real world have met, but we've been corresponding for at least 10 years. And do you remember how we originally came in contact with each other?
I think I found you, and I think that you and I are a great example for people watching this about how you shouldn't view your competitors as competitors. View them as joint venture partners. You and I have done, I believe, a couple products together even. You were in the publicity area for a while, now you're expanding, and of course publicity is my niche. And we've done products together. I don't view you as a competitor. I view you as a JV partner.
Absolutely. I think it was about maybe 8 or 10 years ago, when you interviewed me for this series of, and I'm going to talk about that, some of the things of your offerings. But it was you're basically an audio interview. Yes. That you sold from your site, and I made it available from mine for many years, and I've interviewed you. So we have collaborated on a number of
that was back in the days when teleseminars were all the rage.
That's right. And we've upgraded here to add the visual component here.
Right.
But for those who may not know, I'm just going to give you like the very, very quick overview. But I know you're a former journalist.
Yes.
And I think you've always lived in Wisconsin, right? Too.
I've been back and forth. This is my second time in Wisconsin, and I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. I left once already and missed it so much I came back.
Well, cool. But I know, some of your early, I worked as a journalist, I believe, in Wisconsin or in various cities. Yes. And then, but I think has it been at least 20 years now that you've been so self-employed as a...
Almost 20 years, yeah.
Wow, and that's awesome. And I'm celebrating 20 years as a published author in 2013. So we've been at this a while. But for those, maybe I'll just let you maybe fill in some of the quick details about who you are and what you've been up to for all these decades.
Okay, I'm known as the Publicity Hound. That is my trademarked brand. And when I came into this business almost 20 years ago, Bob, as you know, it was all about getting publicity in newspapers, magazines, TV, and radio. And, I mean, you can see what's happened with the newspaper business. It is limping along. So I have morphed my business into teaching people how to get publicity both in traditional media, but also online, and how to promote your expertise using social media, because that's what's big right now. It's a part of our lives. So I've dovetailed both traditional and social together.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to adjust my little video here. I don't want to shock anyone with my motion there, but I'm going to try to get my head a little higher in the screen. But so as you mentioned, I never really. I mean, I just don't really buy into the whole competition thing, like you said. And you have always been more about general. I mean, you appeal to people who need publicity of all types. Where my niche was more about music publicity.
Right.
But you're more of a And so I always like to remind people that, yeah, the definition of publicity and also the definition of media has expanded greatly, as you just mentioned. 10, 15 years ago, it used to be, yeah, the magazines, the newspapers, the radio shows, but now it's anyone. I guess it's like any third party or anyone who you can communicate with, who then can help you communicate your message to their audience, whether it's a blogger that has 20 readers or it's somebody with a YouTube channel that has 2 million subscribers. That's all fair game to getting the word out.
Exactly. And Bob, it goes far beyond that. I also teach people how to be their own media outlet, just like you're doing right now. What are you doing? You're creating a video for what? For your TV show. And there are podcasts, there's video, there's publishing through electronic newsletters. There's so many things that you can do right now that any entrepreneur can do to be their own media outlet and push the message out to the people who they're trying to reach.
That's awesome. And I think it's wonderful that you've developed a career and you've sustained yourself for 20 years teaching people how to do that. So here's a rare. I know normally when we've collaborated on things, it's more of a teleseminar where we're giving tips on publicity, and this is going to be more of a focus on you and your journey and your success. But so let me just ask you some things about your business model before I get into my official list of questions here.
Sure.
But so what I've observed over the years, and I guess I'm sure this has evolved, but it seemed for a number of years the main things that you offered people, as far as as for sale products, you had this huge list of like special reports that I guess were text based, like maybe 10 or 12 page reports on very specific things, and then you have this series, and it used to be just strictly audio, like interviews or teleclasses that you did when you interviewed an expert, and that was like your main product offering, those two things. And I was wondering, why did you choose those two things, and how has that evolved? And I assume you also offer some sort of coaching or consulting where people can work closely with you for higher dollar amounts. But
the special reports, there's sort of an interesting story behind it. I'm in the National Speakers Association, and when I joined almost 20 years ago, all of my friends in there said, you have to write a book to be considered an expert in your field. And I really have no interest, quite frankly, in writing a book, because my byline's been published 1,000,000 times as a reporter. So I thought, if I'm going to write my book, I'm going to start to make money from it right away by selling a chapter as a special report. And I think back then I threw a $7 price on it.
Right.
And they started to sell like hotcakes from my website through my electronic newsletter. And after I got up to about 15 of them, I thought, wait a second, do the math. What's 15 times 7?
Right.
I can't sell a book for that much money, so I just continued to crank the special reports out. And yeah, I probably should have had a printed book at some point, but that's just not the way that I chose to go. So I thought it was easy to just crank these out.
Right.
I could do 4 of them in a weekend.
That's
Four
cool.
of them in a weekend. When the pile of bills is this high and the revenue coming in is about this high, it was time to crank out some more special reports, which is exactly what I did. And today I think I have 52 of them, and a whole bunch of audio teleseminars, some of which I still sell if the information is updated. But now I've gone to recorded webinars using the GoToWebinar platform. And so they're basically video replays with sometimes handouts that I include with it. And people seem to really like that.
Wow, and that's actually a very similar way that I got my own start. As I mentioned, it's been 20 years since my first book came out, so that was 1993. But in the couple of years prior to that, the first information product that I sold was a special report. And back then, I was mailing them. They were stapled together, 5 to 7 or to 10 pages that I would sell by mail order. And it was a guy named Jeffrey Lant who had.
Jeffrey Land.
You know who he is? Yeah,
I was his groupie way back when I got started. He is fabulous, and I followed him too. That's really funny.
That is it, because he has a bunch of self-published books that I read, cash copy and all sorts of stuff, and he sold these special reports, and I'm saying, well, I could do that. So yeah, I was selling these little information products stapled together, and now, of course, I mean, well, for many years now, I've been selling them as downloads, as you have. But that's interesting. Yeah, that is cool. You don't have to have a book, and it can be more profitable to sell them in little chunks.
And you reminded me, Bob, when I started selling my special reports, I offered them as printed reports or digital. And quite frankly, I got sick of standing in front of my printer,
Right.
and mailing them and doing all that stuff that you didn't have to do, because what did we do? We should have relied on technology to do all of it for us.
And thank God it came along, and people got more comfortable with it. So that's cool. And then let me go ahead and just go through our. I kind of have a standard list of questions that I like to ask every guest that kind of gets inside of their story and sort of how they. And we can all learn from the answers that everyone gives. But
Sure.
Looking back over the past 20 years of yourself as a self-employed publicity expert, and I know you rank really high on Google just for that phrase, publicity expert. So name 3 things that maybe were responsible for your growth as a full-time creative entrepreneur that you are. These could be beliefs or actions or events or whatever. But what would you think are some of the most important things that contributed to your success that maybe other people can apply to their own lives?
Okay. The first one was building an email list as soon as I started my business. And again, that was almost 20 years ago. And back then, it was really easy to get somebody's email address. And you get it by offering something for free. And that helped me grow my email list, and I started publishing a weekly newsletter called the Publicity Hound's Tips of the Week. So I got in front of these people with a free newsletter every Tuesday afternoon, and here we are almost 13 years later, and I'm still publishing the newsletter. But it was this long. It was really long. So what I did was I chopped it in half, and I now offer it twice a week.
Oh, twice a week now. Okay.
Yes, on Tuesday and on Saturday. So I get in front of my audience twice a week, not just once. But it isn't too late to start building an email list, because once somebody gives you their email address and says to you, yes, I'm giving you permission to market to me, that's terrific. You keep offering free information. Don't keep throwing out there free commercials about all the stuff you're selling, because we're all sick of those commercials. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. You have to provide value. That's the
right. So you provide value, and after a list of tips, I might have a little pitch that's about that big for a product that I sell that's related to it, or maybe not. Sometimes I'll just offer the tips with no pitch. And right now in 2013, it is all about content creation, creating free content for your audience. So that would be the first thing. The second thing would definitely be public speaking. Because when I started my business, I wanted to get out and speak to audiences about my experience working on a newspaper and showing people all the ways to get in a newspaper, because most people have no clue about how to do that. So I'd go around to the Rotary meetings in Kiwanis and Chambers. I would drive up to Green Bay, about 90 miles from where I live, in a snowstorm to talk to 6 people, because one of those people might end up being a client for me, or that would be 6 more people who I could add to my email list. So public speaking is also a terrific way to promote your expertise, whether it's free speaking or paid. Because today, a lot of times the paid gigs are really hard to get. So that would be the second one.
Okay.
The third thing that I have done is I have almost always had a coach or a mentor. I've been in somebody's program, either a live program or one of their long-range courses that I have taken that has taught me how to do something. Because Bob, the technology is changing so rapidly that you have to be at the top of your game, and you have to be on top of everything that's happening and coming down the pike that you can take advantage of in your business, so that you're not standing in front of your printer stapling special reports.
Exactly. Well, that's great, because that's a so let me just touch on a couple of things that you said there. So like I said, it seems like there are a lot of parallels to the length of time that you and I have been online. And I know, so I hadn't got my first email account through AOL. I don't have AOL anymore. This is back in the days when AOL used to send all those free discs, you know, to everyone.
Right.
And I've been saying I've been online since 1995. I think it was actually very late 94, but 95 is when I started using it, and so that's like 18 years or something like that. And right away I saw the beauty of, wow, I can communicate with people. There's no printing, there's no postage, there's no stapling involved, and I immediately, long before anyone had probably even uttered the word e-zine or whatever, I was sending out my tips and information, and even making sales, even though back then people had to write a check and mail it to my P.O. box. You know, I was using email right away, and I realized that was what it continues to be the #1 asset. So thank you for making that your #1 thing.
Hey, Bob, can I throw another little tip in here? Because there's something that you just reminded me of when you said AOL, and I see this problem all the time.
Absolutely.
Especially among authors and creative people. I see so many people using free email accounts like Yahoo, and Hotmail, and even Gmail. I see so many people using those email addresses for their professional business, and you don't want to do that. I see people using their addresses that are connected to their internet accounts and their phone companies. Don't do that. Use an email address that is connected to your domain name. And if you don't have a website yet, go buy a URL and just find a techie to help you figure out how to configure your email address so that that's part of your branding.
Right. And I have actually been using Gmail as my email client, I guess is what you call it. But the cool thing about Gmail is that you could set it up so that when you send an email, it's coming from your domain name.
Yes.
And an email sent to that domain name comes into my Gmail. So
exactly.
So there's a way. I'm not sure about if Yahoo and others have that ability, but so yeah, it's okay to use those as long as the address people are using to connect with you is based on your domain name. And that's a great point. And then the coach and mentor thing, I mean, this is the 3rd interview that I've done, but I think everyone so far, this is like a consistent message. And it's interesting, most of the people that I've interviewed approach this coaching and mentoring thing from 2 different aspects. I think all of us offer coaching, and we're coaches and mentors to other people wanting to learn our specific craft. But at the same time, you're also a student to other coaches and mentors. And this seems to be like the 2-prong approach that's a consistent theme here. And so I'm glad that you have, without any prompting from me, you brought that up too. No.
Right. You have to be. You absolutely have to be. Because a lot of times I can't see past my own nose about what's good for my business because we're just too close to it. And the other thing about coaches and mentors is that they really push you. They push you beyond what you think you're capable of doing. And that's so important because you know as well as I do, Bob, we can sit in our comfort zone and I can say, you know what, I really don't want to do Skype interviews because I got to get my camera set up and I'm always scared I'm going to do it wrong and all of that, and you can't make those excuses. You need to really be pushed beyond what you're capable of doing. I am not a techie, but I have been pushed by all of my mentors to, damn it, learn it.
I know. And I'm glad, and you even admitted some apprehension when I invited you to do this, and you stepped up to the plate and figured out all by yourself, right?
Yeah.
More of that interview with Joan in just a second, but I just want to remind you, if you're not yet on the mailing list, I don't want you to miss any of these interviews. They're very inspiring. I know I'm uplifted from talking to these people. I hope that you are in listening to my conversation with them. And all you have to do to be regularly updated is go to the DIYcareermanifesto.com. Sign up. It's simple. It's easy. You just put in your name, your email, you click submit, and you also get a free segment of my upcoming book by the same title. So please do that. I want to stay in touch with you. And now, more of my interview with Joan. All right, so let's move on to the next important question here. I mean, we all, as entrepreneurs, we face challenges and obstacles. And so can you think of one like specific obstacle or challenge that you have faced over the years? And tell us how you overcame it and what you learned from it.
Okay. I have to go back to technology, Bob, because that's the one thing that is perplexing everybody. And I am not a techie, and I have come kicking and screaming into this. And the one thing that has really perplexed me is video.
Right.
Okay. Video is powerful. That's the reason that we're doing this interview right now.
Right.
And YouTube always was this big mystery to me, and and how it works, and how do you get videos created, and video has really been a struggle. And so I started out using one of those little flip video cameras. Remember those?
Yeah.
I had to learn how to do that. And then I started using this thing. This is a Kodak ZI-8 camera with the little USB thing that you plug into the tower, and you get the video from here into the tower, and then you edit it. And now I can do it on my iPhone. But I discovered something really cool a couple of weeks ago. I took a webinar that teaches people how to shoot video from the iPad, from your iPad.
Oh.
Not only shoot it, but you can shoot it, you can edit it, you can add music, you can do high definition, you can do special effects, and you can upload it to YouTube all in with one piece of equipment. So I want to show you this.
Wow.
I ordered my iPad last week, and it came. I haven't even taken it out of the box yet. And there's this cool little contraption that I wanted to show you. This is called a gooseneck, and what this does is this hooks on to the iPad, and you can then hook the iPad onto a tripod or onto a little ledge or something. And it's really cool the way the whole thing operates. And again, that's technology. And I'm not an iPad person, but once I saw this, I thought, I have got to do this. So I am going to shoot video later today.
Nice.
Of me excitedly opening my box and pulling the iPad out, and then talking to people about how great this is. And then I'm going to get them to a webinar I'm going to host with a guest expert who I heard originally do this webinar, this training session. So,
Awesome.
and then, back to video again. I took a fabulous YouTube course. I immersed myself in it this past winter, spent 2 hours every single morning learning about YouTube, the ins and the outs of it, and how to optimize your videos for the search engines, and how to do a lot of the things that most people are missing. And I've got about 30 videos up on YouTube, and they're crap. Most of them are they're crappy videos. The vast majority are not optimized. And one of the cool things about it is I can now go back to YouTube and I can optimize all those videos now that I know what I'm doing.
Right.
So yeah, technology, video, yeah.
And I
Don't
know what
like it, gotta do it.
And just for those who might not know what you mean when you say to optimize the videos, once they're up, when you go back to optimize them, you're talking about changing the titles, the descriptions,
Yes.
the tags, the things, the way you describe it to help people find that, who are looking for that topic, to be able to find it, right?
Right. Can I give you a fabulous tip about optimizing video? This is something that I learned. YouTube gives you 5,000 characters for your description. In the old days, I would just slap together a sentence or two and throw it up there.
Right.
You want to use all 5,000 characters because you can get keywords and keyword phrases in that copy. That's about the equivalent of about a 900-word article. That's a lot of copy and a lot of opportunity to get a lot of keywords and keyword phrases in there that Google will find.
Right. And I know another big YouTube tip is that so that description that you mentioned, even though it can be very long, when someone goes to a YouTube page, they only initially, the default setting is they only display like the first couple of sentences of it.
Yes.
You got to click a little button to expand it or to show more. And so the key thing is to put your call to action and the most important thing that you want people to do with that video in that first sentence or two. And quite often that's a link to somewhere where either they can buy a product or opt into your email list or go get more information about whatever it is that the video is about. You want to put that in the very first sentence, and then put the other stuff in there. For those who, a lot of people don't even know that you can expand that box.
Yes, you can. That's a 900-word article. That's huge.
Yeah. Awesome, awesome. So that's cool. So congratulations on embracing technology
Oh,
and
it's frustrating, but you can't let it get to you. You just can't.
no.
The other thing I want to throw in, and this was a mistake I made about maybe a year or so ago. I was somebody who predicted that Google Plus was going to be a great big goose egg. And boy, was I wrong. Google Plus is red hot because Google owns it and it's a
Right.
Google platform. So I was late getting onto Google Plus. I just started about a month or two ago, and I am now ranking on the first page of Google, sometimes in the first, second, or third position for my keyword phrases that I am sharing as part of my content on Google Plus. And Google is now using Google Plus as part of its algorithm to determine where you show up in search when somebody types in keywords or keyword phrases. So it's really, really important to get on Google Plus, be active in it, and don't get frustrated that you can't figure out how it works. I think it's really complicated, and I struggle with it. But the longer I'm on it, the easier it becomes.
That's a great point. And even though it's not as ubiquitous, is that the word for as Facebook? Like not everyone's
Yes.
mother and sister and grandmother is on it
Yeah.
like they are on Facebook. But it just behooves you to be on it for all those reasons that you mentioned, because it helps you come up and this Google
Right.
gives you a lot more juice when you have a profile there. Whether or not you're communicating with your friends or not via it. So that's cool. So let's go on to so this is kind of an interesting. If you could go back in time and or actually have a conversation with your younger self, maybe at around the time when you were thinking about making the leap, perhaps from working for someone else as a journalist to making this leap to be your own boss. What kind of words of wisdom would you have? And so there's a three-part question. It's basically looking back, what would you do the same, or what would you recommend to your younger self that you do the same? What would you like, maybe things to, these were kind of time wasters, I would stay away from that. That's part two. And then part three is what would you maybe add into the mix earlier or do, that maybe you didn't even think about back then. So I know.
Okay, so give me the first question again.
So the first question was, if you go back, what would you do exactly the same looking back at the past 20 years?
What would I do the same? I would have gotten hooked up with a mentor really early, and I did. And it was Tom Antion, and he is a multi-million-dollar internet marketer. And I met him through the National Speakers Association and started to follow him, got into his mentoring program, made 3 trips out to Virginia Beach, where he's got his whole setup, and it's been fabulous. So yeah, get hooked up with a mentor right from the beginning.
Awesome. So that was something you did exactly the same. We mentioned that, and then what would So what would you sort of avoid? And I know this is sort of a hypothetical question, and a lot of people will answer it by saying, "Well, I learned from the mistakes that I made." But what were some of what's a mistake maybe, or something that you would say this is not worth going down?
Oh gosh, how much time do you have? This was a really expensive mistake, and it's something a lot of people are curious about, and I get asked this all the time. Google pay-per-click ads. Should I use Google pay-per-click ads to pull traffic to my website? Right. Should I use Facebook pay-per-click ads? I lost my shirt on Google pay-per-click and even Facebook pay-per-click and even LinkedIn pay-per-click because I threw my campaign together really quickly and I forgot to turn it off.
Oh boy.
So if you're going to do Google pay-per-click, there needs to be some really good reasons why you're doing it, and don't do it if you don't know what you're doing. Because when I forgot to turn mine off and I saw the $550 charge on my credit card from Facebook, and then I just dropped everything, went back in there and thought, oh, I forgot to turn it off. What an idiot. And the same thing happened with Google pay-per-click. So either farm that out to somebody to do for you or concentrate instead on producing terrific free content for your audience. And yeah, Google pay-per-click is real effective for a lot of businesses, but you got to know what you're doing.
Right. Yeah. Because I was just to say, you hear reports of people, yeah, who do really well with it, but it's something that you have to focus on
Right.
and immerse yourself. Either hire an expert or
Yeah, yeah.
or take days or weeks or whatever to learn all the intricacies of it. But yeah, I've had similar experiences with that. So that's cool. And then what would you do earlier? Or add into the mix maybe that you didn't. Looking back over the years?
Farming out and subcontracting work that I either hated doing or didn't know how to do to subcontractors who could do it well. Perfect example, graphics. I struggled, I don't know how many times to come up with my own graphics, and they look like crap. They look like my own graphics. And there's so many graphics people out there. Now you can go, here's another tip. Go over to Fiverr.com. Do you know about that site,
I
Bob?
sure do, yes.
Fiverr.com. That's a site where you can either offer your services or find services, and people will tell you what they're willing to do for $5. I have hired people over there who have done great work for me. And of course, Fiverr didn't exist back when you and I got into the business, but
Right.
it does now. And so that's something. Even some of my video editing, as I told you, I can't stand that stuff. That's not my side of the brain. So I have a video editor who I farm that out to, and so that I can do more creative things to bring money through the door instead of this minutia that I hate that drives me crazy.
Right, and I that's another consistent theme I'm hearing from the people that I'm interviewing is this thing of focus on your strengths and yeah, and in fact, my new book that's sort of tied into the that I'm working on, that's tied into this interview series, is called the DIY Career Manifesto, which I love that title. But of course, the DIY in that title stands for Do It Yourself,
Right.
which is it's something that I know I think all entrepreneurs are sort of plagued with that thing about I want to the thing about creating my own career is I get to control everything.
Yes.
Nobody's telling me what to do.
Yeah.
But that can lead to you trying to control too much and doing
Exactly.
things. And so I always like to remind people that it doesn't mean just because it's a DIY, a self-created career, that doesn't mean you have to do everything, but you can
Right.
do it on your own terms, I guess, is what
And
the main...
it's very hard for people starting out to subcontract when you don't have a lot of money,
Right.
when you don't have any money to pay people. But sites like Fiverr exist. You can go on to Craigslist and look for people in your own community. And there are now so many people who are in business for themselves, or even college students doing some of this stuff, to bring in extra money. That even if you don't have a big budget, even if you only farm out one thing that you hate doing, it's at least a start.
Right, and Elance, Odesk, there's a lot of these sites
Yes.
that where you have to pay more than $5. But I actually had someone design an ebook cover for this new DIY career manifesto, and
Great.
it was $30 for a really nice
yeah.
looking
Oh,
ebook
yeah.
cover.
And it probably
so,
looked terrific.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's very cool. All right, so I know that I'm sure that you're a voracious reader, I'm assuming, or learner. But I always like to ask this question: name a book that changed your life, and explain why. A book that changed your life.
I can think of the book, but I can't remember the name of the author. And I can remember how I felt when I read it. This was back almost 20 years ago. I had left the newspaper industry, which at that time I could see the writing on the wall. I mean, it was going to be it was very close to being a dying industry at the time, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. Where do I go from here? I really don't want to work for a PR agency, not quite sure what I want to do, really want to start my own business. But the person I was married to at the time was in grad school. And there was no way I could start my own business. And I got my hands on a book on how to be an entrepreneur and all about being an entrepreneur. And I can remember the chair I was sitting in my living room. I read the book, and I had such a thirst and such a passion to be an entrepreneur, but didn't think I could make it. So I sort of delayed the decision, and I turned to prayer.
No.
To pray for guidance. And I'm not trying to get all woo-woo on you,
Yeah.
but I needed guidance and I needed inspiration and I needed to sort of be led in the right direction. And I got my answer. And I started my own business with my husband in grad school. And it was really, really tough. Boy, you want to talk about clipping coupons. It was very tough, but it worked. And, here I am almost 2 decades later. And I, often turn to divine inspiration when I get stuck with a lot of things. And for me, it works.
That's awesome. Do you remember the title of the book?
No, I don't. As a matter of fact, I've tried to find it on Amazon. There are a whole lot of titles. All I remember is that the author is in the National Speakers Association. I know that, but I can't remember his name. And there are a lot of books on how to be an entrepreneur. And one of the things that hit me about that book, and you've probably seen these, they have these little 10 questions. Are you the perfect entrepreneur? Do you have what it takes?
Right.
And I did the little quiz, and I answered yes to 9 out of the 10 questions. And that's how I knew that I had the stuff, that I had the passion, that I had what it takes to be able to be a success doing it.
That's awesome. Well, there's a slogan I'm sure you probably heard, but it's when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yes.
And so and it's amazing. As an author, and I bet you've experienced this too. You never know. You may write something and think that you're just sort of writing something that's matter of fact or whatever, and then later come to find either somebody emails you or you run into them at a conference and they tell you how much something that you wrote changed their life, and you just never know what that's going to be.
Right.
And I know one thing as an author, I always remembered those times when I was inspired or I read something. There have been times when I actually have read something and I had to put a book down and pace around the house and yell, "Eureka!" I finally get it. And I always, as an author, when I'm writing, I always my intention is to try to get that sort of reaction in my readers. And luckily, over the years, I've found that is true. I get the emails and read people who said that how much. And I bet I have a feeling you're probably getting the same. Even though you're just writing about publicity, there's probably something there that really has affected someone. Do you get that type of feedback too?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, and this is another tip I'd like to pass along to everybody watching this, I got an email yesterday from somebody who has been on my list for a whole lot of years, and she had a question that she asked me, and she wanted to be referred to somebody who does work that I don't do. And I thought to myself, you know what, this is about the 5th time in the last couple months that somebody's asked me about that. So I am going to start to pay more attention to that part of my business, to referring people who come to me for certain types of work, referring them to people who I know, like, and trust, who I know will do a great job for them, and then working that in to my business either through a referral fee or something like that. Pay attention to your email. The questions people are asking you in your email. That's a tip-off to the kind of products you could be creating or the kind of services you could be offering.
Absolutely, that's a key to being to making money too.
Yes,
is that and I know that different people have written about this, but there's a book that a lot of people know of, or at least like the title of. It's "Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow." Money will follow. Yes, and I love it's a brilliant title, and I have the book somewhere in my bookshelves, but really. There's a caveat there. It's like, do what you love and the money will follow if what you love to do serves a need in the world that people are willing to pay for, or a want in the world, I should
Bob,
say.
Remember I told you the living room chair that I remembered I sat in when I read that book on being an entrepreneur?
Right.
I sat in that same chair when I read that book. Do what you love and the money will follow.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, that's great for anybody who's thinking of either starting a business or switching careers, and you're scared to death.
Right. And about that, you talked about, prayer or whatever. I think there is something to be said for, and regardless of what your beliefs are, I think there's something about getting quiet and then either tapping into your higher self or listening to that still voice inside or wherever you feel it comes from.
Right.
Just filling your mind with information. At some point you got to be quiet and just check your gut,
Yeah, I call it prayer. Yeah. My girlfriend calls it asking the universe.
Right.
Ask the universe for direction on where you're supposed to go, and it comes.
Absolutely.
Got to be patient, though.
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't come clear. Yeah. It doesn't
That's
come
right.
written out and spelled out in a package like your iPad came in. So let's talk about future plans. What how has your business evolved recently, and what do you see moving forward? How's the Publicity Hound going to be? What's in store for you in the months and years ahead?
Wow. I hate to sound like a broken record, but I have to come back to technology because I think it's such a very important part, not only of my business, but of everybody's business, especially for anybody who's doing business online. I want to get to the point where I can really embrace technology and learn to love it because it offers so much opportunity of all these things we can do differently to build our businesses and to get the knowledge that's up here into the heads of the people who need what we have. I'll give you a typical example. GoToWebinar. I was scared to death to do GoToWebinar. I thought there's no way I can do this. You know, what happens what happens if the whole thing crashes while I have 60 people on the line? And it's never crashed. I've made a whole lot of stupid mistakes, but the world hasn't come to an end. And you know, you learn and you move on. And you know, this iPhone that I have, I don't do nearly enough with it that I could be doing with my business. And I need to know how to do that. The iPad that I have sitting over here, I need to stay on top of the technology and figure out what I can use to grow my business. Good example, Instagram and Vine. Right. I know how to use them, but I don't use them. And so I'm trying to think of some ways that I can use them to grow the business and to, you know, to bring people into my fold.
Right, there's Pinterest and all. There's always something new that's coming down.
Yes.
Down the line.
Speaking of Pinterest, when you Google yourself for keywords, don't just Google your name. Google your important keywords. I have Pinterest boards that I have my keywords in, and they're ranking #1 on Google for some of my keywords.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah, so those Pinterest boards are really powerful, and Google Plus too. I can't stress that enough.
Cool. And so I know, that's something I was going to mention earlier when you were talking about the webinars and all that, and we talked about earlier how your main offerings from your website were the reports, and then it used to be teleclasses or interviews, and now it's webinars. But I always admired you for having a kind of a streamlined product offering where you sort of, because me, I'm like all over the map. I have books, I have ebooks, and I have some audio programs, and then I have some kind of, I'm starting to do like e-courses, and so sometimes I think I confuse my audience because I have all these different choices that they have, and a lot of it's based on me just kind of playing and experimenting. Oh, here's a new technology, and maybe I'll create an information product using this new system.
Yes.
But you've steadfastly kind of stayed with like 2 or 3 things, and then you just have dozens and dozens of offerings within each format. And do you think that's a smart thing? Is that apparently has served you well?
You know, it's worked for me, but one of the mistakes that I have made over the years is not getting myself out there in front of new audiences that don't know about me yet.
Right.
There tended to be too much of a reliance on the people on my current email list. That's just a sliver of all of the people who need to know about me. So one of the things I'm going to be doing, really concentrating on in the next couple of months, is getting onto some really high traffic blogs by guest posting.
Guest blogging,
Yeah, guest blogging at blogs where there are like small business people, small business blogs that are high traffic blogs. All those people need to know about me. So I'm going to do a fairly active campaign in outreach to go to those blogs, and I know how to do that.
Right.
I know how to do it, and I can write.
Absolutely.
It's just doing it. It's following through and doing it.
Right, absolutely. Well, this has been wonderful, Joan. Let's wrap up by letting people know where they can find you.
Okay.
And then I know that you mentioned you have some resources like I think the YouTube course. And is there any other things that maybe I can try to put as many of these in the show notes as possible, and then maybe if you want people to reach out to you, also that you can send them.
A couple of things, 2 things that I suggest you do. First, go to my website at publicityhound.com, and over on the right-hand side, there's a little sign-up box to subscribe to my newsletter, and you'll hear from me every Tuesday and every Saturday. And I promise you, it's a real quick read. And I concentrate a lot on free or very, very inexpensive tools for self-promoting, because that's my target audience. They're mostly small business people. So go on over there, opt into it, and to thank you, I'll give you a little cheat sheet called 89 Reasons to Write a Press Release. And a lot of those reasons don't have anything to do with having news, right, surprisingly enough. So the second thing is, go to my blog. If you go up on top, there's a word that says blog. Click on that, and it'll take you over to my blog, where I've written more than, I can't believe this, 2,000 blog posts on virtually every aspect of free publicity, public relations, and how to self-promote on a super duper tight budget. Also, if you're on Google Plus, connect with me there. They don't have vanity URLs yet, unfortunately, but just do a search for Joan Stewart and you'll find me. Put me in a circle and I will put you in one of mine, and let's stay in touch. Share. Let me know where I can find you on Twitter. I'm at Publicity Hound on Twitter. Share a lot of great tips, as you do, Bob. I retweet you a lot.
I know that.
Because your content is fabulous.
Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Thank you for being my third interview in the Creative Entrepreneur.
Thanks for having me.
You're wonderful, and I know again this is your first video interview, and I'm so thrilled that that you did this splendidly. So.
And guess what I'm going to be doing?
What's that? I'm
going to be hosting video interviews with experts, because this is a lot of fun.
Oh, awesome. Well, maybe I inspired you to try to dip into this water as well.
Yeah.
So, all right, Joan, thanks a lot. Take care, and I'll be back again with another interview real soon. Bye.
Thanks.